Digital deep dive event with Curasight, where we're going to talk about the brain cancer area today. My name is Henrik Ekman, and I'm an equity analyst here at HC Andersen Capital, and I will try to do my best to host this event. With me today from Curasight to present is CEO Ulrik Krasilnikov and co-founder and CSO Andreas Kjær. So welcome to both of you. Before we begin, I would also like to welcome the audience. Feel free to use the chat room to forward any questions, and I will try and forward them to the company. We will have a presentation from the company, 15-20 minutes or so, and then take Q&A afterwards. So with that, welcome both of you, and Ulrik, perhaps you will start.
Thank you, Henrik, very much for this invite to this deep dive in brain cancer. I will today give you a flavor of the specific indication together with the co-founder and CSO Andreas Kjær, and we have prepared this presentation. First of all, we have a short disclaimer about the forward-looking statements. You have to make your own assumptions. Just some highlights as we get new investors every day, just to give you an idea of what kind of company is Curasight actually. And we are a Danish clinical phase 2 company founded back in 2013 by a research group from Rigshospitalet. It's based on more than 10 years of research at Rigshospitalet, headed by Andreas Kjær, and our proprietary platform within imaging, which are named uTrace, can be used within several cancer types. This means that we are actually testing uTrace as the platform is in 8 ongoing or completed phase 2 clinical trials, but we will come back to the overview about that. uTrace has been tested in more than 400 patients, and by that proven to be safe. We are actually tapping into a very interesting and very rapidly growing market, which is expected to grow 5-fold within the coming 8 to 10 years. We have a very strong IP position with issued patents both in the US, EU, Canada, and Japan and China, actually. And since our IPO in October 2020, we have raised around 95 million Danish crowns for financing the lead program, which is brain cancer, and that comprises a phase 3 PET imaging study with uTrace. Furthermore, that to pursue our therapeutic option with uTreat to make it ready for a phase 1-2 clinical trial. And furthermore, we also have a prostate cancer opportunity, which we will not touch today. And some highlights since the IPO, just to highlight for the new investors. First of all, we are very proud that we got 2 awards and 2 prizes for Best IPO 2020 by the Independent IPO Guide, one for excellent stock price development and one for the quality of the process and the company. Furthermore, we have initiated a clinical study within therapy, which is named uTreat in brain cancer, and we will come back to that. And furthermore, we have finalized earlier in last year a phase 2 study in prostate cancer with uTrace, which was highlighted and published in the March issue of Journal of Nuclear Medicine, which is a very recognized scientist. And furthermore, we have granted patents within the uTreat, the therapy option, and furthermore also within uTrace for diagnostic purpose, covering the market we also want to pursue going forward. And furthermore, we also initiated the initial commission research with ACB, which covers the development of the company continuously. And finally, we exercised the second part of the warrant and the IPO in October 2021 with a ratio of 98% of all issued warrants, which is very satisfying, meaning that we have a very good cash position at the moment. Just to give you an idea, how is the nuclear medicine market worldwide expected to increase and also develop going forward. First of all, there are some growth factors which is driven by the aging population, which unfortunately causes increasing number of cancer indications, a wider use of nuclear medicine in general at the hospitals around the world, and then also new introduction of radiopharmaceuticals like U-Trace and U-Treat are the drive factors within this market field. But actually, it's expected to grow with a fivefold within the coming 5 to 6 or 8 years. So it's very interesting also for that perspective. And then I will hand over to Andreas.
Yeah, thank you, Ulrik, and thank you for having us today, and great to see so many that have joined. Before we are talking, because today we will talk about brain cancer, and this is what we have highlighted here with the orange square. But it's important to understand that the technology that Curasight has is cancer specific, but not cancer type specific. So this means that it's applicable in an array of cancers. And as Ulrik mentioned, we are pursuing in brain cancer and prostate cancer right now, but it's being tested in many other cancer types. And this makes it quite exciting because most other companies working in this area are developing things that are confined to one type of cancer. So to unfold the potential of U-Trace and U-Treat can be a very interesting story, and of course we will update on a continuous basis on our decisions to pursue other indications. But today it's brain cancer, and U-Trace is the imaging technology, and this is where we plan a phase 3 study. And we also in brain cancer goes for the therapeutic option shown in green in the bottom. And I come back to why this concept of targeted radionuclide therapy is particularly intriguing in brain cancer, and why this is the first indication we are going for. Before we go into more details with brain cancer, just to say that UPAR is the target. So you have a target where your compounds U-Trace and U-Treat are binding to, and this needs to be something expressed on cancer cells and not to a high extent in healthy tissue. And we went for UPAR, and we think this is a quite clever choice, because it's not only a marker that is expressed on cancer and on most solid cancers, but it is also related. It's the cause of invasion and spread of the cancer. So the more aggressive the cancer is, the higher the expression of UPAR. This is good for several reasons. First of all, we can use imaging to see how aggressive the cancer is. But secondly, and most importantly, when we target radionuclide therapy, which is liquid radiation therapy if you want, to target UPAR, we get the most therapy exactly to those cells that are the most aggressive. So you could say it's an intelligent way to distribute your radiation therapy in the cancers. And since the target is UPAR, that's the reason why the imaging technology is called U-Trace, and the therapy part is called U-Treat. And this is what is actually shown here. It's important to understand that what we work in is so-called theranostics, and that's a word that is the combination of therapy and diagnostics. So we have two versions basically of the same compound, one that is loaded and with harmless radioactivity for imaging, that's U-Trace, and then one with radiation therapy for U-Treat. And it's not only that we have those two technologies, but they work in synergy, because we want to de-risk. We want that our therapy is efficient in the patient you administer them to. And by doing imaging first, we know if it lights up on the cancer, then we know that our compound reaches the tumor, and therefore the afterwards follow up with therapy we know gets in there. A lot of therapies are not effective, in particular in brain, because they do not get access to the tumors. And we can de-risk this by doing imaging first. On a higher level, all the imaging data that has been produced with uTrace also paves the way for the therapy, because when data are published on a new cancer type, recently there was published data on head and neck cancer, and it turned out that they lighted up and it was related to prognosis, then it's very obvious to say, well, this could be an interesting type of cancer also to follow or to pursue with a therapy option. So this link is very important to understand. And this is also what is called companion diagnostic. The imaging part is a companion to the therapy. So targeted radionuclide therapy, the principle, and this is extremely exciting. This is the very reason Ulrik showed the slide that in this area, a 30% year-to-year growth is expected. And the reason for that is that this is really, in my view and many other people's within the area's view, this is the new type of radiation therapy. So a lot of the radiation therapy, and remember that 60 to 70% of all cancer patients receive radiation therapy at some time during their course of the disease. So it's really one of the strong pillars in therapy of cancer. This is now more and more going to be moved from external radiation therapy as we know it today into radiation therapy we inject into a blood vessel that reaches the tumor, and this is a more gentle and less harmful and potentially also more effective way to do therapy. And the principle is shown up here, where with external beam we irradiate from the outside, but with targeted radionuclide therapy we have this compound that seeks out the cancer cells, is injected into a blood vessel, and the advantage is not only that it gives much less radiation to normal tissue and seeks out automatically the cancer, but it also seeks out all cancer in the body. So if a patient has disseminated disease that is spread, then it's also possible to use this principle. There's no way we could irradiate from the outside a patient with widespread disease. It would cause too much harm to healthy tissue. So this is the concept and really the new thing within cancer therapy. And our version of this targeted therapy is uTrace, is uTreat, but we combine it with uTrace. And as I said here, AE105 is the binding peptide that binds to the receptor UPAR. This is on the membrane, the surface of a cancer cell. And then we arm it with either gallium for imaging or lutetium for therapy. And lutetium has a range of 1 millimeter. So when it sits on the cancer, it irradiates in essence the cancer and does not irradiate to any larger extent healthy tissue. And this is why this is also a more gentle way to do therapy. And again, remember, as we go for UPAR, our technology can be used across cancer types. If you take PSMA, for instance, for prostate cancer, or you take Lutathera, which is the only registered compound targeting specifically, it's confined to one type of cancer. Our technology can be used potentially much broader. So when it can be used broadly, why are we then so focused as a first step on glioblastoma? This is because there's a large unmet need here. First of all, it is a rare disease, but it's still the most common primary brain tumor. It has a very, very poor prognosis of only 1 year on average in survival, and almost 19 out of 20 are dead after 5 years. On top of that, which is very sad. 10% of these cases are in children. And really nothing happens over the last 15 years. The current standard of care was implemented in 2005, and the prognosis has not really moved. And the reason for that is that it is a very tricky tumor. It is a tumor that is spreading very diffusely, and I come back to that. We should also underscore that all these patients, unless they are so poor that there's a lighter management given, but the bulk of these patients already get radiation therapy from the outside today. So we do not have to convince the doctors that are treating these patients that radiation therapy is a good thing. We just replace the way to a hopefully more effective and more gentle way to do radiation therapy. And this is just to show you the idea of the companion diagnostic. We have not given the treatment to patients yet with brain cancer, but patients have had the imaging. So you can see here that what you see is what you treat. This is a patient with a glioblastoma, this aggressive brain tumor, and here you can see that it lights up on U-trace. And therefore, we know that when we will, in the future, hopefully treat a patient with U-treat, then we know exactly that U-treat will get in here because U-trace gets in there. And it is the same peptide and the same size. It's just the radioactivity that is different. So therefore, we have great expectations of this. Then we come back to why is this targeted radionuclide therapy better than external radiation therapy? The idea is that external radiation therapy is given from different angles. The tumor is down here. So the idea is that by giving this from different angles, it adds up in the tumor. So the most radiation, the red color, is given to the tumor. But the problem is we irradiate through the healthy brain from all these angles. So a lot of the brain will get, yes, a lower dose, but a substantial dose. And normally this limits the amount of therapy we can give. By giving injection, we have something that looks like the scan you saw of the patient previously. It sits in the tumor and not to any larger extent in the healthy brain. You could see here that the healthy brain was very dark, indicating that there's almost no radioactivity here. But more important is, and the reason why it's so tricky to treat brain tumors, is that it's known that there are small islands of tumor tissue around the tumor. You cannot see them on MRI because they are not very large, but they are there. And as long as you only treat what you can see, the macroscopic tumor, and leave behind these islands of cancer cells, it will regrow, and this is exactly what happens. By giving radiation therapy as an injection, it will also seek out these islands and treat also the cancer cells that we cannot see. And this is why we believe, I mean, remember, nothing happens over 15 years, so you could say it's very ambitious that we believe we can do something much different in these patients. But we actually believe that because to do targeted radionuclide therapy is a different concept. It's a game changer, and it addresses very specific the challenge in this tumor, namely the diffuse way it grows and is spread in the tumor at already a time of diagnosis.
Yeah, and this is to give you a flavor of the market size of the brain cancer specific. We have calculated around that there is 65,000 new cases each year, and that by that it's actually considered to be an orphan disease, and we will go for an orphan disease designation and try to get a fast track by FDA. But when we look at the market, it can be divided up to the imaging part, which is the diagnostic pathway, and then the therapeutic path. And if all patients that are recognized with brain tumors need at least one scan. Normally, during the treatment period, each patient will receive around 3 to 5 scans during the treatment period. So this is a very conservative calculation. Furthermore, we are looking at the reimbursement codes for comparable PET tracers like NetSpot, and this is beneath this reimbursement for NetSpot. So again, a very conservative calculation, which sums up to around 200 million euro annually. If we take around the 65,000 new cases, then around half of those cases are considered to be high-grade gliomas, the aggressive brain tumor, and they need the therapy that Andreas just explained. And that again is based on comparable reimbursement codes for like Lutathera therapy, which is used in another area. But again, it sums up to around 5 billion euro annually, the total market, and that is also, from that perspective, very attractive. Then, of course, we show you the market size, and also this is a rather new technology within oncology, if you look at the long-term perspective. But big companies like Novartis, Bayer, and GE are really stepping into this technology right now. And I would say what was really highlighted 4 years ago was Novartis acquisition of AAA and Indocyte, which was acquired for $4.2 billion for AAA and $2.1 billion for Indocyte. And that is, I would say, fairly comparable companies like Curasight, where we will be within a couple of years. So that is also for a transaction and M&A perspective, interesting view for Curasight to look into. And recently, last year, this Bayer also acquired 2 companies, PSMA Therapeutics and Noria Therapeutics, as they don't want to be left on the train parent. So our platform. So that is very interesting for that perspective also. And there is actually an interview with Vas from Novartis, the CEO, where he's justified the acquisition of the AAA and Indocyte. I recommend everyone to hear his explanation for that.
Yeah, and he's basically, we could say he's basically underscoring that what we are also saying, that this is the new way of radiation therapy, and this will be one of the pillars within cancer therapy. So this is just the beginning we have seen.
Exactly.
So basically, I don't think we should use too much time on this, because it's more that expect several things to come out in 2022. Both on the brain cancer, which we discussed today, and on the investigator-initiated study with uTRACE. Then preclinical data on efficacy will come out on uTREAT in animal models of human brain cancer. And remember that uTREAT has been shown to work in both prostate cancer and colorectal cancer. So it's not a question of uTREAT working in cancer. It's a question of providing those data needed for a forthcoming clinical study within the specific indication of brain cancer. And then, as I mentioned, new indications, and the third indication, head and neck cancer, actually was published before we expected. So that has already been communicated in December. But I think it's not the main topic of today. So I just go to the next slide. And the idea with this busy slide is just to show you that Ulrik said that we will be where AAA and Endocyte was in a couple of years. I think to be on the optimistic side, potentially we will be even further, because both of those companies were single indications on the asset they had, and UPAR is still across cancers. So hopefully we could even be better positioned than they are. But this is just to show you that, of course, there will be need for more capital and to fully unfold the platform and to go into more cancer indications.
Yeah, and this is just to show the composition of our board, which has been strengthened in connection with the IPO, and recently Kirsten Dreyer, one of the old ladies in Danish biotech and in general in the Nordic region, has stepped in also, yeah, just to show you. And this is also the current team, and recently Hanne Damgaard Jensen has joined the team as Chief Development Officer, and she was actually the employee number 4 from the Genmab when Genmab started up 20 years ago or more. And she has been part of the development in Genmab, and she is now the team of part of our development going forward. So we are very pleased about that.
And I think, Ulrik, we can disclose that she was really excited about being able to join Curasight.
Yeah,
because she could see a potential and will be part of the journey going forward to unfolding this. So and she built a development department from zero. She was number 4, as Ulrik said, employee to more than 70 people when she left 8 years later. So we are very pleased, and she's an extremely good match to the rest of the team.
Definitely. Yes. Then we hope you have some good questions, or at least you will be able to answer. Maybe not all, as we are a listed company.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It's fascinating stuff, and of course we're all interested to know when and how it will work, and of course if we could just start out by, there's a lot of questions, but there are some questions all relating to how your technology compares to, and it's said here in the chat, MRI GRT, how the UPAR is compared to the integrin as a biomarker, and how you compare to NetSpot and U-Treat to Lutathera. So it's just to place your technology from a technology standpoint relative to some of these other approaches to cancer treatment.
Yeah, I mean, if we start out with the target, I think one of the important thing is that we have worked with this technology for 10 years. It's out of my research group on the imaging and therapy part, but before that it was pioneered in Copenhagen for many years as a target for other uses. And UPAR is one of the most well-described targets within cancer. So, for instance, alone 200 publications based on biopsies are linking the UPAR expression to the aggressiveness of the cancer. So I think it's a clever target, and we know our target, which is very important to be able to develop and unfold within this area. We are not saying that there aren't other targets, but we believe this is the best target. And if you pick something that is not so well described, there needs to be a lot of background studies done. So I think UPAR is for us the very best target. We have demonstrated in 400 patients who have data from the investigator-initiated studies that demonstrate it is expressed across solid cancers. So I think the target is really relevant. Of course, when the company unfolds in many years, it might be that we will go for other targets, but right now we will be very focused as the UPAR company. Then the question is how it compares to other, on the radiation part, how it compares to other technologies, for instance, MRI guided radiation therapy, as I read the question, or maybe some heard about proton therapy, also called particle therapy. And all these refinements of how to do basically external radiation therapy, either by distributing in a clever way within the tumor, or by particle therapy to get it a little bit more delivered within the tumor and less to the surrounding. All these concepts, I'm sorry for being a little bit blunt, is trying to optimize something that is wrong from the beginning. Because remember what I said. I said the problem with glioblastoma is that what you see on MRI is not the actual tumor. You only see the solid tumor. But we know, and this is up to 5 to 10 centimeters away from the main tumor, there are small islets of cancer cells because it grows diffusely. Those small deposits cannot be seen on MRI. And for that very reason, it's, in our view, the wrong direction to try to refine how to get the external radiation therapy into the field that you can draw on an MRI scan, because the MRI scan is only seeing part of the truth. And this is why the concept of injecting something that seeks out what you can see as well as what you can't see, in our view, hopefully will be the game changer. So we see no challenge against these incremental refinements of delivering of external radiation therapy. What I'm saying now is not necessarily true for other solid tumors, but in particular for brain, this has been the tricky thing. And I also believe that the 15 years with no real improvement, and believe me, there has been tried a lot of things to improve the external radiation therapy over those years, is kind of a demonstration of that is not the road to take in our view. You need to take something that is game-changing.
Okay, but still, you mentioned yourself, and you showed it in the presentation, these publications from the scientific community.
Yeah.
What is the typical critical pushback you're getting from a technology standpoint? Because I guess that there are also questions relating to, well, how many treatment or fractions do you need to have this work? Is because it's only in the body for a very short duration of time, or what sort of the challenging stuff of this technology?
It's not only for a short time in the body. Our preclinical data on human cancers implanted in mice that will come during 2022 with efficacy will exactly address that. Should it be one larger dose? Should it be more doses? But typically these therapies, because the radiation used for imaging is short-lived, but for therapy is long-lived. So typically it sits there for a week. This is how it can become very effective. So the therapy sits there for a long time. But the exact dosing regime is exactly what is studied in animal studies. Is it best to give one large study, or to fractionate it in 3 times a third of the dose? Typically, that is the case. And the typical dose regime is to give typically 3 or 4 treatments.
Yes. Yeah, because looking at it from the outside, of course, this sounds fascinating, but often there is a lot of investors would like a sort of a validation from, as you mentioned, when major big pharma companies are partnering up or acquiring your competitors and your type of companies. So what would be the partnership strategy? I know you have this strategy update coming up later this year, but it's just to understand where you see yourself in this line of possibilities, taking your product all the way to the market.
Yeah, where I should start. First of all, we have to develop a strategy for each indication, because it has its own life, and also it requires different setups. And especially brain cancer is normally concentrated on the high qualified centers in the country. So we actually more or less know the zip codes for where to go with this product. If you compare that with the prostate cancer, which is treated more decentralized and minor hospitals, it will be another structure and also another partnership we will work on. But it's not fixed yet how to pursue it specific within brain cancer, but it will be obvious to go for a partner structure with some of the big players in this field also.
Yeah, and if I could continue on that, I totally agree, of course, with Ulrik. And what we are doing is that we are, and I can of course not disclose the details, but we talk with all the big players on a continuous basis that get update on where we stand and where we are. And it is some of them, like the examples we saw from Novartis with Endocyte when they acquired that, and AAA, they are more interested in the therapeutic part, and they acquired those companies relatively late stage. So there was a question about the buzz around PSMA and Endocyte. There will be, in my view and hope, even more buzz about Curasight, but this will be when we have the phase 1/2a studies. That's typically when big pharma becomes interested to have the clinical validation. On the imaging side, there are other relevant partners, and they are, of course, very relevant right now because we are clinical stage on the imaging already. And then again, the target price, I mean, it could very well be what Ulrik says, that big pharma was interested in our therapy with uTreat in brain cancer only, and that could be a transaction. And we would go for other indications and partner with other partners there. Sometimes it's per indication because it's very different. Sometimes, of course, it's a larger package. But the reason why are people not talking as much about uTreat as they talk about Endocyte right now? That is because they are 2 years ahead of us in being clinical stage. On the other hand, they are in an extremely busy space. There are a lot of PSMA ligands coming out, and we have a much more, in my view, unique technology. So the upside could be quite high. But that is why, and what we are not getting, your other question was pushback. We are actually not getting pushback on the technology. It's more like sounds really interesting. We look very much forward to get the next level of evidence, like for the therapy, large excitement, and we want to see the first patient dosed with this. Then we come back. Very often, these pharma companies rather want to pay much more at a later stage. But we make sure that they are fully aware of the technology and exactly where we stand in our projects and our development, so that it's not a new thing for them, but they are fully updated whenever they should find interest in going into more firm discussions with us.
Of course, the uTreat is sort of the big potential in this, but your linkage of the uTrace to uTreat sounds as if it's a pretty expected route, that if it works in uTrace, it will work in uTreat as well. Of course, we would all like that to happen, but there's this question relating to how positive would you expect the uTrace results to be to go further with uTreat to be successful? It's just to understand what is it similar? So if uTrace is good, then uTreat will also be successful. Where are you on that?
That's our expectation. So basically, and we cannot disclose it because, I mean, the data needs to be published. It's an investigator-initiated study on the imaging. But basically, if that study will show that most cancers are positive with uTrace, and that what lights up is cancer tissue, which is kind of the two things the study investigates, then it's definitely a full support of going into uTreat, because if 9 out of 10 lights up, then 9 out of 10 can potentially be treated. So there is a one-to-one thinking on our side. on the U-trace. And that's also why when you are talking about partnering, if we were developing a therapy that was based on something that had never been the binding part of it, never been in patients, then there would be a large risk that it could fail not because the compound is not working, but the compound never bound to the tumor or never got access, for instance, to the brain tumor. And that is taken out when we have the U-trace study of our part. So you could say, even though we are not clinical yet in the therapy, we are partly clinical because we know how it looks in patients. And this is very valuable for partnering opportunities and for de-risking the study with the therapy afterwards.
Ulrik, there's this question, I guess it's a little, it's a clarifying question relating to the FDA fast track. Was that, what was, you had some comments on that, was it U-trace or U-treat, or what was it?
It's a U-treat, actually, mainly, but normally when high-grade gliomas is considered to be an orphan disease, and we will apply for orphan disease designation, meaning that you could get a fast track by FDA to get U-treat fast on the market, or faster on the market. Also means that you don't have to make the full package. Andreas know more about that, but you don't have to include too many patients in each phase. So that is part of the fast track.
Yeah, it will. And if I could just, it will also be bundled. So it is on the disease and something that can help. And as it is companion diagnostic for U-treat, it will also apply to the U-trace. So we will look into all these special mechanisms. And this is because it's a often disease and rare, and because nothing happens for 15 years, anything that could help is likely to get fast track because it's so frustrating that there has been no breakthrough in this particular disease.
In relation to this, there is this question. So how many patients do you actually need for the U-treat brain cancer study?
That's an extremely good question. I mean, of course, this is what we are designing and thinking of right now. But the evidence, what FDA has accepted, and the way these studies, and I have even been working as consultant for some of those that are doing studies not with UPAR, but with targeted radionuclide therapy. The easy answer is it typically ends up being around 25, maybe 30 patients. So it's relatively low number that is needed. But this is for the phase 1-2 study. Then, of course, the pivotal phase 3 study will be larger, but such a study will also be undertaken at multiple centers.
You've already touched upon the fact that the technology can be used for various cancer forms. There's this question if U-trace will also be relevant for diagnostic of meningioma.
Yes, it is, yes, because we actually when we did the initial studies, then incidentally a meningioma also lighted up. So yes, it can be. It's a relatively smaller group of patients that would be eligible for that probably, but we actually in the academic setting, we published recently that they are UPAR positive.
Then time is running here, but perhaps we can. There is this question relating to your lockup of your shares, and if you want to share any thoughts on what your expectations will be regarding these positions. For instance, prolong the lockup period, or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, first of all, it's only Andreas and I who is comprised of this lockup, and it will end it by June this year, and we have actually prolonged it half a year. Rest of the management board has ended by the December last year. So we have not done any considerations about that. We will take that decision where we are by the end of Q2 to what will be the right position for the shareholders and the company and us. It's also a matter of the free float of shares in general at the market. But it will be it will be very bad time for us to sell shares, and at least from my perspective, I do not want to sell any shares because what we are looking into is very interesting right now.
I can only say that we see this as long term, and as also relating to the questions. I mean, the potential is just starting to unfold. If you take the benchmarks, you take the potential of the technology that is across different cancers. We are moving into clinical also in the therapeutic part. I see the current valuation far under what the potential is in the company. So it wouldn't be wise
no
to leave early. So
yes, and to finish off here, of course, these things also relates to your funding situation, your cash position, and it's just to have your final thoughts on that, because unlocking this potential, of course, we will need some cash to go to this. So what are your thoughts on your funding and cash position?
I was first of all, we have with the current portfolio what we are pursuing right now. We have a very good cash position, but of course, when we are speeding up and accelerate to unfold the full potential, we need additional cash, and that will be part of the strategy plan, and that is also something we are working on at a side. Of course, we need fuel at the engine, otherwise we are not able to do what we want. So that will be part of the strategy update also, what our thoughts is about that.
Yeah, and I think we have the luxury that the more funds we have, the more we can unfold the potential, because we have these multiple indications. So programs could start in new indications if the bandwidth is there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as said, we went over time, but that's always okay when we have a lot of interesting questions. So with that, thank you very much, Ulrik Krasilnikov and Andreas Kjær from Curasight, talking about the brain cancer area. And also thank you for all the questions from the audience. And we will be following the strategy update later this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.